Hi, this is Diane Mourglia-Swerdlow. Welcome to another edition of Cooking with Janet Expansions.com. Now, some of you may remember when I did the cornbread where I ground my dried corn. So I want to show you here, I want to pull you back to that particular time. When I took this and actually ran it through my spice grinder, I made the cornbread, which I hope you all had a chance to try on your own and enjoy. The next thing that I told you I was going to do, and I kind of started the process for you, was I take this corn and I'm going to make masa. I'm going to show you how to do it. You may or may not want to do this on your own. It does take a little bit of time, but for me the result is worth it. And there are a lot of things you can do with masa, and I'm going to only show you one thing today, but I will tell you a couple other things you can do. So what I did to start with was I took 4 cups of this corn. There's 8 cups actually here, but I took 4 cups of the corn. And I also showed you last time the slaked lime. This is out of the, I don't have the top of the package. I tried to get some for you yesterday, but they were out, and I'd already cut this one open. So this is the slaked lime. I get this at a Mexican market. I put in 4 cups of this corn here in this pot with about a gallon of steam distilled water and 1/3 cup of the slaked lime. And I boiled it for about an hour and a half, and I wanted to have it ready to go for you. Now you can tell when it's ready. This one isn't, you can see how swelled up it is compared to the corn that we started with. Very small. It's swelled up, and so when it starts to break open at the top, like this one, this is actually done a little bit too much. We want to have it look more like this, but this tells me that it's ready. So once I boiled my corn, then you take it over here to the sink, and I use a strainer, and I have to wash the slaked lime off. So I pour all that in, and you can see how the 4 cups has swelled up, and it actually turns into about 8 cups by the time you're done. So 4 cups of the dried corn, 1/3 cup of the slaked lime, a gallon of water, and for me it takes about an hour and a half to boil it to get it ready. Now the slaked lime is not something that you want to eat. It really is for taking off the outer layer of the corn and making it easier to grind. So that's what we're going to do to make our masa. So then I wash it in cold water because I want to get all of the slaked lime off. I want to get all the outer husks off. And also if it's just out of the pot and it's warm, it's going to cool it off a little bit and make it a little bit easier for grinding. This is a recipe that we really have been enjoying because remember what I told you, corn is good for energy. It also helps strengthen your kidneys, your stomach, your digestive system. It also helps to lower blood sugar. I'm going to run my garbage disposal for just a second and get this water down. And I wash it until my water runs clear. Now, you can use the corn in this stage. I have used it like this and added it to my chili or to any other kind of meat that you're making, or you can eat it as is. It's a little tough and it's a little chewy, but again, my family happens to like it this way. Or you can grind it and add it into your recipes as well. When I make the masa, I actually grind it twice, and that's what I'm going to show you today. So you have a rough idea what to do should you decide to undertake such a project yourself. Once you get in the habit of it, it's like everything else. It makes it really easy. First time can seem a little bit daunting. I know it did for me. So over here I'm going to show you, this is my KitchenAid mixer. I don't use it really all that often, but once in a while. It actually was a gift to me, and it was reconditioned. So it was not as expensive as if you have to go out and buy a new one. This is my KitchenAid grinder. It's a little bit difficult to clean. I'm not real thrilled with the cleaning process, but it's what works with what I have. And I use the smallest die that I have and put it together like this. Now, I also use this, I've not shown you this yet, but I also make a really wonderful liver buffalo liver pate, which I did serve to my Hyperspace Oversoul training group this week, which they loved, even those who said they didn't like liver. So one of these days I will show you how to make liver pate, and I also use this to make a wonderful chicken pate. So I do use this on occasion, and this cost about $40 when I purchased it a couple years ago. This just goes right in the top to line it up with a little diamond in the back. There we go. Fits in the slot. And again, you may have other grinders yourself that are easier to use. I'm not necessarily recommending this one. I'm telling you this is what I have. So of course this is what I use. I make sure it's off. I never plug it in with my fingers around it. I'm very cognizant of that. And then you take your corn. I'm not going to do it all for you today. I'm just going to do a little so you have an idea. So I take my washed corn and I put it in my grinder. Now to do your masa, you need to grind it twice in order to get it smooth enough for what you're going to be doing with it. So, let me next plug it in. Make sure it's off, otherwise it's going to be whipping around all over the place. For those of you who watch my recent podcast, I have my stuffed cabbage cooking in, so it's going to be a really nice dinner tonight with everything together. And I have a plunger, which I don't always need the first time around, so let's see what happens here. Alright, there you go. You can see it coming out the end. Again, like I said, not the best setup in the world, but it is what it is. And the first time through, it comes out kind of coarse. And I just keep putting in the corn. Okay, after it's gone through once, it's a little on the coarse side, so we want to run it through again. So I keep another bowl handy, and I just trade and do it again. Now my understanding is if you make things like tamales, you don't need to run it through again. But knowing what I know, I probably would go ahead and do that, just so it would make me feel better. You want to keep a little bit of moisture in it. If it's not moist enough, you can add a tiny bit of hot water, either while it's going through or when you're done. And I'll show you that when we're done. We'll take a look and see. And again, what you want to use it for. But it just takes the tiniest bit. If you put too much in, you're going to wind up with soup or corn mush, which might be one of the things you use it for, but make sure that's what you want if that happens. So let's start with going through this again. And this time I use my plunger because it's a little more coarse to make it come through. And adjust your speed accordingly. But it's going to make it a little bit more fine this time as we run it through. Alright, now we've got this through the grinder the second time. And I'm going to take this off. There we go. All over me. Put this through. And then of course, if you're doing it at home, you want to not let this sit, because what will happen is it will make it more difficult for you to clean up. So you may need a little knife to take the dye out of there. Sometimes I can pop it out, and sometimes, and there we go. So you're going to want to take this out and save what you can, and the rest of it will obviously go into the sink to be washed. And that's where I'm going to put mine for a moment so it can soak and come off. Now we have this. It's a little dry, so I'm going to just take some hot water, and I use my fingers because it's pretty stiff, and you don't want to do too much. Maybe 1/4 cup to 1/3 cup, depending upon. If it becomes too wet, it's going to turn into mush, like I told you before. So it doesn't take a whole lot of water. You can see how it's already softening up. And this is actually I'm making for pupusas. And this is my version of pupusas. So if you happen to be Salvadorian or from Central America, you may have a whole different version. But this is what I do, and so far so good. What I like to do from this is, again, the 4 cups of the dried corn, which is now swollen up, grinded, all kinds of stuff. I take a pound of cheese. I use 8 ounces of cheddar, and I use 8 ounces of mozzarella. And I use my grater here and hand do it, so it's nothing fancy, but I have done it so you don't have to sit here and watch me do it. And I just mix it right in to the dough. Now, one of these days I'm going to do tamales. I have not used it yet for that. I used to make tamales a lot, but with the store-bought masa, not with my own, so I need to work through that recipe as well. And I just move it in. You don't have to do this. I also like to put a little bit of sea salt in. And again, you know, you'll find out what your tastes are if you choose to do this. You can get store-bought masa if you choose to do the store-bought masa. I spoke to my friend from Michoacan in Mexico, and she told me to get the kind that is made in Mexico because she feels it has less mold and pesticides and everything else in there. So if you want to get masa from the store, that's what you'll need. And then you just mix your cheese in. Again, a pound of cheese to 4 cups of the corn, which turns into about 8 cups of masa. So you may not want to use quite so much cheese. You will figure it out for yourself. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to make these little patties and fry them. I'll show you in a minute. But if you want to make tortillas, you can make tortillas out of this without the cheese, of course. But I like to put the cheese in it for the pupusas. And then we just eat this as an accompaniment to our dinner. Down in Central America, they like to add a little bit of salsa to it. You can also make a double patty where in the middle you put beans in there and then fry it. You could put meat in there and fry it. You can do whatever your imagination tells you that you want to do. But basically you want to make a nice dough. And from the nice dough, I just take I have olive oil over here, so I'm going to get some in and going. And you can make it as thick or fat as you want. It does not take very long because remember, this is already cooked. You just want to crisp it a little bit on the outside. And again, if you make it really flat, you can put in your beans or meat or whatever. Here's my olive oil. It's smoking, so I want to get my things in. It's hot. It's on high. And it does not take long to cook. And they're really delicious. I wish you could smell these. It's really nice accompaniment to any meal. You can eat it for breakfast if you want, although I'm kind of more of a protein person. I advocate protein for breakfast. You can just put a few in there. Because I know my cameraman and his lovely, charming assistant will want to have a couple hot off of the stove as soon as I can. Okay, so you can see I put a little bit of oil in there. It's ready to flip. They don't need a lot. You can make them as crispy as you want. My family likes them really soft inside because then the cheese, it's melted, it's kind of nice and ooey gooey. And it doesn't take long, just a couple of minutes on each side. And you have a really nice accompaniment to any meal. And I serve it with salsa, and tonight I'll have it with my stuffed cabbage like we talked about. So it's fun for something different. And again, you can freeze the masa if you make it yourself, or if you get it from the store, of course. I would still keep it in the freezer unless you're just going to use a whole bunch of it. So let me flip these over. And in just a couple more minutes, these will be done. But in the meantime, I want to thank you for joining me, and I hope you have fun with whatever it is you do. Again, do your best not to stress. That's not what this is about. And I look forward to seeing some of you out there at my Mind Pluck 2012. That's coming up. And I have so many interesting, fun ideas that we're going to do. We're going to help you unstuck whatever is in your mind. So we're going to pluck the stuck and get you going so you're going to have a fabulous healing 2012. Thank you again, Diane Mourglia-Swerdlow, expansions.com.